Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to use forms in Flutter. So there is a widget called text form field using which you can display input boxes to the user on a UI. Now here we have a new widget. So let us return a scaffold from this build function, and to the body let us add a column. To the list children of the column let us add an instance of this widget text form field. And if you save this, it will look like this one. Now let's add some padding. And let us display some hint inside this text form field. And for that we have to use the property called decoration, and we have to pass an instance of the class input decoration to it. This constructor of input decoration has a parameter named hint text, to which we have to pass the text which we want to display as the hint text. Now let's consider we are creating a login page, and thus this text form field is for the email. Now we are going to add another for the password. So let's copy this and paste it once. Change the hint text. Now to display the content of the column at the center, let's pass main axis alignment dot center to the property main axis alignment of the column. And let us add an instance of the widget elevated button to this list of children. We are going to pass a text widget to the property child with the text login, and we shall implement this onPress function later. And now let us, if we try to type something, you will notice that both of the text are visible, but this should not be the case for a password. The password should not be visible, and for that there is a property called obscure text. Pass true to it for this second text form field. Now save the changes and you will notice the difference. Now inside this onPress function of the elevated button, we have to get the data entered by the user into this text form fields. And to be able to get the input information, input data, we have to add text editing controllers to this text form fields. So we have to create instances of the class text editing controller, one for the email, another for the password. Now we have to pass these instances to the property controller of the text form fields. So let's pass controller email to the controller of the first text form field, and let's pass controller password to the text form field of the password. Now we can get the values entered by the user into these text form fields with help of the property text of these text editing controllers. So inside the onPress function, let us try to print the values. Let's add a print statement and let us print the email. We can get it by printing controller email.text, and here we are using string interpolation to print this value. Similarly, we can print the password using controller password.text. Now let us save the changes and try to add some values to these input fields and press this button. And here on the console we can see the email and the password. Now here if we keep one field empty and try to press the button, then we will notice that an empty string gets printed. In a real use case, we should not allow the user to submit the button without entering a value to any of these fields. So we are going to validate the form to verify that user is entering a valid email and password in this form. Now to validate the input fields, we have to specify some conditions, right? And for that there is a parameter called validator in the constructor of text form field. So we have to pass an implementation of a function, and this function gets the value of the text form field as an argument. So we have to add a parameter of type string, nullable string. This can be null. Now if we return null from this function, this means that no error has occurred during validation. This means that the value entered by the user is a valid input. So we are going to return null anyways, but before returning null we are going to check whether the input is valid or not. So for that, here let's add an if statement, and inside we are going to check whether this value is null or it is empty. So if either the value is null or it is empty, then we are going to display an error, and we have to return the error message from this block. So if the value is empty or if it is null, then we are going to display this error message. If we get a non-null value, then this block will not get executed and null will be returned, which means that the value entered is valid. Now let us do the same for the password field. So let's copy this validator function and paste it here, and let's change the error message. So we have added the validator functions, and now let me show you the way to execute all these validator functions with a single function call. But for that we have to put this text form fields inside a form widget. So we have to add a form widget above this text form fields in the widget tree, so we can wrap this column by the widget form. And now we have to assign a key to the property key of this form widget. So we have to create a global key. So let's create a variable of type global key. We have to specify the type as form state, and let's name it global key, and create an instance and assign it to this variable. Now we have to pass this value, this key, to the parameter key of the form widget. And now we can access the state corresponding instance of the state class for this form widget, and we can call the function validate on that instance. So inside the onPress function, we are going to call the function validate of the form state class. That function returns true if no error occurs during validation, and that returns false if any error occurs during validation. You can try printing the value. So let's add a print statement, and let us try printing global key dot current state dot validate. And here we are asserting it to be non-null, the form state to be non-null, because we have added the form to the widget tree and we have assigned the key. So in this case this is not going to be null, and we are asserting it to be non-null, and we are calling the function validate. Now let us run the app and press the button without entering any value, so that some validation error occurs. And notice that on the console we can see it printing false. Now enter values for both of the fields, and this time no validation error should occur. And if you press the button, this time you will notice true getting printed. So we are not going to print this value in the console. We are going to check the value inside an if statement, and if this returns true, which means that no validation error has occurred, then we are going to process the input information. So in case of login, we are going to pass the data to the server for authentication. But in this case, for this example, we are simply going to move this print statement inside this block. Did you like the video? Then press the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get connected on the comment section.